Games coming thick and fast. The Toon turn their attention to the weekend and the visit of Crystal Palace. We like to get the view of the opposition now and then, so who better to join us than an Eagles legend who made over 270 Palace appearances to preview the game. It's a big welcome to Black and White with Arab News. Now, before we meet today's guest, it's a warm welcome to our main man, the man with the golden pen, Ali Khaled. Ali, how to unpack the midweek game, Liverpool against Newcastle?
Hi, everyone. I think I should tell everyone that Peter and I are no longer friends after last night's match. Our 20-year friendship is over, arguably. No, the truth is, Pete, you know, obviously, our listeners don't know, I've been traveling, so I was unable to catch the game last night. I've been catching up with it today online. So the goals, obviously reading about the time-wasting or not time-wasting controversy and all that. Obviously, I didn't watch it, so I can't really comment on it too much and all that.
You've got to stay neutral for the podcast, are you?
I got to try not to wear my Liverpool hat today. But, you know, I did say one thing to you. I find it a little bit surprising that, you know, friends and supporters of both clubs, people that I'm really close to, incredibly intelligent fans on both sides, you know, are quite divided on it. I, you know, there's not many people in the middle who are saying, yeah, you know, it's a bit of this and a bit of that. And it seems quite. So I think it just goes to show how, you know, emotions must have been really running high, and it came across from the highlights that I watched it. So in a way, I'll throw it back to you. You know, you got to see it. What did you think?
Again, trying to remain, you know, unbiased. I thought first and foremost, let's say it was a great game. I'm going to ask today's guest his thought as well from a neutral perspective. But for the neutral, I thought it was a great game. I think that possibly, you know, getting carried away in it. You look at Liverpool fans; they say that there was huge amounts of time wasting. Newcastle fans say that the referee was swayed by the cop. You're always going to get that. But all in all, I think it's shown how far Newcastle have come. Ali, the fact that the Newcastle fans are disappointed, you know, last year or the year before or 14 years before that, to go to Anfield and be involved in a close 2-1 would have been but a dream. So that's what I will say. Okay, listen, it's time to meet today's guest, an Eagles legend, as I've said, and we're going to look ahead to the weekend's game. John Salako, a massive warm welcome to you. But putting you on the spot, what did you make of last night's game?
Do you know, it was a really interesting game. Obviously, Liverpool with the slow start. I mean, obviously, they are missing Mane and they need Núñez. And at times they look leggy. You know, I don't know, Van Dijk's look, you know, and it's interesting with Klopp taking off Robertson and Trent Alexander last night. You know, you sort of think, well, okay, and Henderson, and, you know, he's perhaps trying to give him a rest, or he's trying to give him a kick up the arse, saying, listen, there's got to be more intensity. He needs those boys. So look, interesting times. They smashed Bournemouth 9-0, and they're always capable of doing that, as City are, you know, with some of these boys coming up, like Forest getting smashed, you know, could have easily been 8 or 9 at City last night, v Bournemouth. So, look, you know, it was a fantastic game. It was interesting. Game of two halves of game. Second half, Liverpool came out a lot better, you know, passed a lot of ball a lot quicker. You know, they got it up front, asked a lot of questions. And, you know, I felt for Newcastle because they didn't have St. Maximin. You know, again, Callum Wilson's injured. Guimaraes, I love. He's a fantastic player. The boy's absolutely brilliant. He's going to hopefully go to the World Cup. So, you know, it's fantastic because it's wonderful when you come to a big club like Newcastle and the fan base. You need to get on their side, and of course, we all know how big the number 9 shirt is at Newcastle with Malcolm McDonald, Shearer. You know, all the boys down the line. You know, some of the wonderful players we've seen. You know, it's been fantastic. So it's another. I mean, I know he's Swedish. He's not the Colombian or the South Americans that Newcastle have been used to. But, you know, the boy's a live wire, and I think he's got a good attitude. He looks like a fantastic buy. So slowly, Newcastle are putting things in place and building a team. And what Eddie Howell and Jason Tint, what they've done is just Guimaraes and just lifting it, Isak. And then, I mean, Joe Linton's been a revelation.
Based on this, the last couple of times Newcastle have played, and they've played against the big two, let's have it right, Man City and Liverpool, everyone said they've had a good go. My problem here is this running out of juice. I know they're putting their all into it, but they've got to learn to play over 90 minutes, AK, haven't they? Yeah,
I think, again, can't really comment on yesterday, having only watched the highlights. But some of the reports mentioned that they've visibly tired, and maybe that led to some of the, absolutely delays and interruptions, shall we say, But I thought, I mean, you're absolutely correct. But I also thought, like, watching them against City, I really enjoyed that game because Newcastle, like, for about 60 minutes, the intensity was like no other team I've seen play against City, with the exception of Liverpool under Klopp, when they've really, really gone for City, So a lot of energy was expended. But once the game came back to 3-3 and, so they kind of run out of energy, they played out the rest of the match quite well, I mean, they defended well, even had a couple of chances themselves. So, and that's against City. I mean, that's the best team in the country at the moment. So although I think that is one of the things that you probably look to improve there, I think it's really tough against City in particular. They make you run so much, So but they still handled it, and in many ways, I mean, I guess it was only a few seconds away from saying it worked yesterday as well. So in hindsight, you might think, right, it didn't work, but like, again, if you keep a clear head and all that, it's a great performance. Again, just for a second, if I might say it as a Liverpool fan, I'm absolutely delighted with the result. Incredibly delighted. And again, it just got. I mean, Newcastle are the only team to take points off Manchester City this season. And in Liverpool beating them yesterday was a massive result, So I mean, that in itself tells you something. And the previous game against Wolves as well kept going till the last. Got a very late winner, So I don't think it's much of an issue, and I do think we've been keeping tabs. I remember when Eddie Howe, they came to Saudi, they've come to Dubai, and like, he was constantly talking about improving the fitness from the off, and the difference from this Newcastle team and the intensity of the Newcastle team 2 years ago. It's like night and day.
Absolutely. Let's move down to London. And John, what have you made of Crystal Palace so far? They look a very, very solid outfit under Vieira, don't they?
Yeah, he's done an incredible job since he's come in. He's really implemented certain styles of play and, certain philosophies right throughout the squad that has just been an absolute revelation. And I think the boys are loving what he's about. We were a bit worried that he would come and overplay a little bit too much, a bit like when, Frank de Boer came and he tried to change things too early and sort of go that Ajax style. And you thought, is Vieira going to come and, implement this new style of play that the boys just aren't able to cope with and not got the ability and maybe the understanding to implement that. But look, he's been sort of very pragmatic and he's been very gentle with the boys. As you were just touching on, it's vital. They've got to be fit. They've got to play in intensity and tempo. The Premier League stepped up another notch now, and you look at the way Arsenal are playing, you say Man City, Liverpool, when they're at their best, they're hard to stay with. And at that top end of the Premier League, it's what it's all about. It's that ability, but it is all about that fitness. But Vieira sort of turned, Joachim Anderson, phenomenal player, took him from Fulham. He's come in and obviously Gay, made his England debut along with Tyreek Mitchell, been sensational. And we've got Eze back now, who's another fantastic talent. He's getting the best out of Wilfried Zaha. He's giving him responsibility, and right throughout the team, he's trying to add, he's trying to build. For me, the one thing that Palace are really missing is that focal man, that big striker that can go beyond and stretch teams and get it into his feet and hold the ball up, because it's all got to be up, back and through. I mean, what Jesus has done at Arsenal is just completely transformed them with his ability to come to the ball, to turn, to break the lines, because you've got to be able to go past people. In the Premier League, you need someone on that pivot to come and, Cheap Decore is fantastic. It's sitting as the 4, and he's always available. Every now and then he's got to be able to have those wing mirrors to turn and then be out, and then you can get the runners and the movement. Now, if you don't have that invention, that creativity, and if you watched that game last night, Liverpool didn't have that. They didn't have someone in midfield to come and get on the ball and do that little bit of invention and create play and start off the moves, but in a way that hurts Newcastle. Patrick Vieira, not loads of money to spend. Unfortunately, we lost Conor Gallagher. Half a chance we could get him back today if everything goes well. But, the team's moved on and developing. So what we do, Patrick Vieira has a philosophy and a style for every game. He tries to analyse the opposition, home and away, and develop, tactics. You talked about maybe doing like a little scouting report for you. But, Patrick Vieira goes, like we played Liverpool away. We went 5 at the back, go through, sort of, and then going sort of 2 and a 3, maybe that drops into, it turns into a 5 and a 4-1. So, but when you're playing away at Liverpool, you've got to pay them respect, and, you've got to go and stop and nullify their strengths, as they did at Man City, 2-0 up. own goal, Joshua Edison, great header. And then Edison makes a massive mistake. For me, he goes to throw it out. Edouard sticks his foot out, hits his foot, he goes to Ayew, sticks in, it's 3-0. Now, I think that was a shocking decision because it's overprotecting the goalkeeper. Edison clearly made a mistake. I know the law, by the strict law, it says you can't interfere with the goalkeeper delivering a ball. But that is, seriously, I think that little bit of common sense and that, it's one of those decisions where, okay, you can say, by the letter of law, it could have been. But they got away with one. Palace should have been 3-0 up. Look, Man City, raw back. Haaland's unstoppable.
I was going to say, we know the script. I looked last night and saw Haaland had scored 3, and I thought it hadn't been updated from the weekend.
Yeah, do you know, he is incredible. His attitude and he's a real special type of player. But if you see the goals again, and now, and it's funny, Pep, it was quite scary because Pep said, look, this boy's going to score goals, especially when the team start laying on balls for him, because you sort of Foden and Grealish and, the boys are sort of not really tuned into him yet. But, I think he tapped one in from 6 yards, then he heads one in from 3 yards. He'll take them however they come, but he's got everything. He's got the pace, he's got the strength, the way he's can bully defenders, he's got the strength, he's got everything. He can come to feet, link it up, he goes beyond, he can get up, head, he's got 2 great feet. But the biggest thing, he's got desire, and he's got, he has got this mentality where he just wants to score goals, and he wants to go out there and be the best player, and it's fantastic. It's awesome, and it's great. We've got Ronaldo, we've got now Haaland. I still think Nunez will go on and be a really, really top player, and hope Isak will. So we're getting players again. I wish, I'd love Lewandowski to have come to Chelsea. We want to be signing all the best players. Look at him. He's absolutely on fire at Barcelona. He's still got so much to offer. Couldn't believe we didn't bring him to the Premier League. Maybe he didn't want to come, but Aubameyang might come back to Chelsea now. So the Premier League is just so exciting. And I think that's massively. I mean, how much have we spent? I think we nearly spent 2 billion in this window, which is broken all the records. It's kind of crazy, but I still think there's this frenzy in this thing because of the World Cup. I mean, I was just talking at Palace the other day. I do some of the, I do the corporate hospitality on match days, and I was saying to the main hospitality room, and I was saying, we play Southampton on 29th of October, and that's our last home game. So we play Fulham on the 26th of December at home. He's thinking, wow, this is unprecedented. It's just crazy. But look, everyone's embracing it. We're looking forward to it. I'm hoping to get out there for a week and go and watch it. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be fun. And look at the Brazilians. All my money's on the Brazilians. Guimarães, you got, the lad at Rodrigo, everywhere. You've got Jesus, even Neymar's pulled his finger out at PSG. He's banging in the goals and he wants to go and play. So, it's so exciting. There's so many good young Brazilian players. What's it, the lad at Vinicius Jr. at Real Madrid, and you just hard
to look past them. John, we'll have to look out. We'll have to look out for you because hopefully Ali and I'll be there as well, so we can hopefully get the sombreros on together. It's
absolutely.
It's
I'll be out there in my Newcastle shirt.
I'm going to touch on that in a bit. Listen, Ali, before we get your views on the game ahead, I just wanted to touch back on Newcastle. They've played the top 2 teams as far as I'm concerned so far in the Premier League. Does their setting and their style send a message out to the so-called Big Six that Newcastle are not to be trifled with this season?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we spoke about in the summer, and I think even the end of next season, I think the rate of improvement has been a lot quicker than we all thought when Eddie Howe came in. So we thought, right, what had happened with them winning the first 14 games, or any of the first 14 games last season, no team has ever recovered from that to stay in the league, So we were like, well, and then even Eddie Howe's beginning was, still a bit like modest. We thought, can it happen? In the end, not only did they stay up, they stayed up very comfortably, So I think there was already like a massive, improvement in a short period of time, which was not expected. The signings were spot on in January. Absolutely spot on, So again, in that sense, it has improved. You've got now Isak as well, and Botman, and I think in terms of recruitment, in terms of form, in terms of the positivity, everything, I think the improvement curve has been a lot steeper than we thought. So I think again, the idea of like them sending out a message, I really think that if they continue the way at this trajectory and even improve, of course, then they will be challenging for European places this year without question. I think the idea that Newcastle give them 3 or 4 years is probably like I don't agree with that. I think they this could improve within they could possibly go for European places this year and start challenging for Champions League by the final, or even this year. I mean, who knows how it goes. Obviously they're going to they're still, in terms of experience, maybe they're not quite there compared to City or Chelsea and Liverpool, but
and a couple of their best players being out shows you that
absolutely
they need strength.
They do need depth, but getting Isaac in is a massive statement, and again, and I just want to touch on something that John said. Having players like that in the league, having people like Haaland, and had Lewandowski come in and all that. I think sometimes in the Premier League, it's such a hype machine, all that, like the pundits and a lot of the fans sort of underestimate, some of the players, what they do in Europe. They really underestimate like how good they are and all that. And then they come to the Premier League and suddenly you're like, wow, this is incredible. And they take their teams to a different level. And I think Alexander Isak is definitely one of those players.
Good, and I know that because listen, there's very few people of colleagues that I know that watch as much European football as you. So when you shared your excitement, I knew that it was time to get excited. Listen, John, I'm glad you're on as an ex-pro because of the question that's bugging me this week is something that's happened twice, but it happened with your Crystal Palace. A visibly emotional Zaha straight after, and it's happened in sport a lot recently, obviously in boxing as well. But interviewing Zaha literally seconds after he stepped off the pitch. Of course, he's going to be devastated. He's going to be. Can they not give these players and managers a little bit more time to let that adrenaline pass, or is it all part of the TV hype? I mean, look what it's done for Scott Parker.
Yeah, do you know what? It's all part and parcel, always has been. And I think that's where you get the best, funny, that's where you get raw emotion, you get the proper sound bites, you get the real inside of it, and that's the thing. I mean, I think people always forget how emotional this is, how, it really is. The whole world's watching the pressure that Ten Hag's under at Man United, and even Scotty Parker at Bournemouth, we haven't spent any money, and it's hard in your head to sort of, this is why sometimes I used to sort of have a little pop at managers because I didn't think we saw the real managers, and just be, I didn't see, you wouldn't comment on something that happened, or you wouldn't comment on what's happening in the boardroom or what's going on. Wenger was very good at it, but it's just been able to come, sort of pan-faced and talk about what you want to talk about. I know when I worked with Alan Pardew, he was very good at that. He's very good at leading the conversation. It doesn't matter what you ask me, I'm going to tell you what I want to tell you, and I'm going to go down the road I want to go down. It's very clever. And he's just sort of annoying, but I get why they do that now. And players are not really prepared. And just quickly sort of talk about Wilfred. And these players don't get any coaching. They don't get any help. They don't get spoken to about,
training, right?
And social media and stuff like that. It's beginning to a little bit more, but they don't get any media training. They didn't get any. So they don't get told these things. They don't get given. It is all nerve-wracking. It is hard, standing up and talking in front of people, going in, live on Sky, live on, a little bit nervous coming on your show.
You're a veteran on us now.
All the Newcastle fans, I would have walked, I would have signed for Newcastle. It was everything to have signed for Kevin and come and play for that massive, massive club. We could have signed Minge and Love with Fox, with Ferdinand. But anyway, look, that. Whatever Ron Noble said all those years ago is complete rubbish. I love Newcastle. But
we got in the papers for that one, John, when you told us that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just touching on that point, saying absolutely, like if you are going to give people, if you're going to catch them raw straight after, like after a match, then you got to allow them to say things and not judge them too harshly, in terms of managers, whether, you start giving them bans, if they criticize. I mean, you don't want criticism of referees. I understand that and all that. But if he comes out and says, I disagree with that, or I disagree, they throw, FA bans on them, if Wilfred comes out and, for once, it's a really interesting interview, like a lot of the interviews by players I find are really dull. They're not really saying anything, So when they come out and say all these emotional stuff, allow them that, unfortunately, because of, the hype around the league and all the pressures that John was talking about, and, how touchy the FA can be, most people, stop back, hold back and so we don't get to really these interesting interviews. And when they don't hold back, they got punished on it. And people will say they're losing the plot and their mind games are getting through to them and all that. Well, it's not always that. It's the heat of the moment. You come out, allow them to say what they want. But unfortunately, I think that's a little bit tough. That's why most people don't say these interesting things.
John, I'm sure that you'll be on a scouting mission because Eagles are your team. We know that. I know that you've got a massive love for Newcastle, and we know that story. And the Toon fans with Devo as well, that you couldn't make it, but you're Palace. So, if you were scouting the Toon this season, what would you be saying to Patrick ahead of his visit to St James's Park? How can they come to the Toon and get a result?
Yeah, do you know what? Obviously, Isak changes things a little bit. Whether or not he'll set up with the back five or stay with the back four, I'd be tempted to say I think Palace are at their best with the four. A lot will depend on if St Maximin's fit. He was sensational against Man City. Again, we're going to desperately hope he's injured, out. But when you've got Isak with Almiron playing off him, obviously you've got Joe Linton. If Guimaraes is playing, that changes a lot. But the atmosphere, it's a cauldron there, they're fired up. I mean, that's a real tough place to go now. It's proper. I mean, it's right up there. And as, you guys were talking about, look, there's a 7th or 8th place here and that will be great progression for Newcastle, whether or not they can finish ahead of like the likes of Man United. I don't know if you're looking at that top 6 as it was, they've bought really well, but, going away to Newcastle, you've got to match the intensity. You've got to calm the crowd and quieten the crowd in the first 10, 15 minutes. So, it's going to be important in that battle in midfield to win and don't let them dominate, which is going to be tough. So it's just going to be whether or not, set plays again. Trippier with his set plays, obviously, with Linton and Isak, set plays, don't give away anything around the box, don't let crosses in, but you'd have to double up on St Maximin if he's playing. And, that's why if he is playing, but I don't, again, you're going to find out whether I'd say if they're going to play a 3-5-2, that would be a good formation for Palace to go and play, I think, with the wing backs going on if Tyreek Mitchell and Klein on each side.
I mean, Zaha for the Toon's perspective, the obvious danger man. I love seeing him play. Any others from a Toon perspective? I mean, you mentioned they're a player that I watched from QPR come to Palace, and there was talk at one point of the Toon bidding for him when he was at 5 million. Eze.
Yeah, there was talk about him coming to you guys, for 35, 40 million. Look, he's sensational. Conor Gallagher, when Conor Gallagher was there, we played in a certain way. He brought a certain energy and an effervescence that was fantastic. Now it's changed, and there's much more of an onus of Decore to sit as the 4 and Eze and Schlupp. And Eze's reveling in that. He's got to build his fitness. He was out for a long time, but the lad's incredibly talented, and it's a real
stuck to his foot, isn't it? It's incredible.
And when he really didn't get into a game, we talk about intensity. So for a lot of clubs, and Newcastle are going to find this because of the level of players, we're looking at Liverpool now. They can't keep playing at that level. Just those, those top clubs playing at that intensity, all the time. It's just mad. It's incredible. So the lower clubs have got to accept, like, we got to against Brentford. We looked leggy. We looked a little bit tired. There wasn't quite as tempo intensity to what we were doing. It wasn't quite as, at the level we wanted to be at. And then obviously, the tactics changed, which is something that Wilfred touched on. But, again, there's going to be games where when Palace are at it, they're a fantastic side and they're a handful. And this is what I'm talking about, the 3-5-2, maybe, go and play Wilfred up front, maybe with Mateta or Edouard, try and drop him back into the midfield when we haven't got the ball and go and help out in there, but stretch Newcastle and go and ask questions there. If you invite too much pressure, then Newcastle will put you under it. That crowd at Gallagher, and it will suck it in, and you go 1 or 2 down, then you're back to the wall. But the Premier League, there's no easy games. I mean, Brentford were fantastic the other night. I'm looking at Southampton have started playing well. Leeds is a tough place to go. Again, you always say give it 10 games before you can truly judge the Premier League. But after great starts, Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth, started well. All of a sudden, they've taken Tompkins, and they're going to be like, "Whoa, that little honeymoon period starts to end." And then you get the reality of the Premier League, and because it's like anything, it's like Palace, or you go and have a great game against Man City, and then you suddenly turn up and think, oh, we'll beat Brentford. No, it don't work like that. It don't, Brentford, bring it. Brentford, bring it. And you got to bring that intensity that you played against Man City. You can't switch off. So, Newcastle have played City. Then I think it was the Wolves game, and then Tranmere in the cup, and then all of a sudden you're going away to Liverpool again, and you got to step up again. And first half, fantastic, you say, maybe run out a little bit of steam, but you got to give credit. Liverpool, a good side. They couldn't play that, that averagely, and they stepped it up and they went up a gear. And the only thing is they're really missing that, missing Nunez. He's got to come back in, and they do need to freshen up and find some legs from somewhere. But look, I think it's going to be a great game. Up at Newcastle, Palace are a different kettle of fish, as Newcastle are. They've gone up a step, and I think Palace have stepped up a notch under Vieira and very much looking up rather than looking down. So I think it'll come positive, bring the game to Newcastle, and heads, hearts looking for a draw, but that Newcastle will be favourites for this one.
Can't wait to see it, Ali.
Yeah, Pete, was just a quick point on Palace. I think Wilfried Zaha has been absolutely brilliant. The game, particularly the game against Liverpool, I thought he looked so good. He's looked in most of the games that I've watched him play, and I hope this doesn't come across condescending or anything, but at his best, outside the so-called top six and all that, he's probably one of the best players in the league when he's one of the most exciting best players, going forward. And I think this particular game would have had those probably, again, two of the best players, outside the top six, which are Bruno Guimaraes and Wilfried Zaha. Now, Bruno might not be fit. I'm not sure, Pete, on that one. But like with Alexander Isak coming in, he fits into that category as well. For me, watching the game with Alexander Isak and Zaha in it, it's going to be really, really good. Two of the best players in the league.
He's going to love it. He's going to love playing at the two. And someone who knows that obviously is John. John, I want to take you back 15th of October, 1994, the only time that me, Geordie, Pete has been to Selhurst Park. A bitterly cold day, lightened in the 89th minute by a Peter Beardsley wonder goal of what I have to say. And I know you were playing, but it was a dreadful game, if you can recall it.
Do you know what? I don't really. I can't picture that, but I think I still have a memory of Peter Beardsley's goal. I mean, he was just world class. He was incredible with with his fleet of foot, and he could hit it both feet. But I do remember the first time I played at St James's Park. I can remember playing and a certain Paul Gascoigne picked up the ball about 40 yards out, and I can remember our coach and sort of shouting, shoot, and we didn't get close to him. He sort of stepped into about 35-yard range and smacked it in the top corner. So, and you've always had sort of some special and wonderful players, always a tough team. But it's great seeing Newcastle back, in full flight and at the right end of the table. It's great to see Leeds back in there. Great to see Nottingham Forest, a big club. Hopefully they can do something, but how incredibly hard is it to stay? But as you touched on, start of last season it was all doom and gloom, and then Eddie came in, has just transformed the club, and obviously getting some money in as well is not a bad thing, and that's very important in the Premier League, is to have the back in, having some money to spend and getting some real proper quality. And so I look forward to seeing you guys when you come to Selhurst Park. I don't know when that is, but
we'll dig that one out, Ali. I think we could make a trip to London for this one and get John to host us.
Yeah, hopefully we're battling away at the top end of the league, so that would be pretty cool.
John, I'm going to ask you for a prediction. Give us a score so we can put it into the system, because Ali's not bad at this. I tend to stay out of it, so give us a prediction for the weekend.
Oh, do you know what? I mean, obviously, look, I'm gonna massively sit on the fence and I think massive fingers crossed that we can get away with a 1-1. I think I'll take a point all day long. As you say, Wilfried Zaha and Mateta and Edouard up front, and we've got Elise's back fit now. And Eze in that midfield. If they fire in, if we go up there, we just got to try and keep things tight. But look, if St Maximin's playing, Almiron, Isak, if they're back, if you've got all your players firing, you're very hard to stop. Trippier and set pieces, obviously. It's going to be difficult for us to keep a clean sheet up there, but I'll take a 1-1 all day long.
And I'll be WhatsApping you over the weekend, no doubt. Listen, last word as always goes to Ali Khaled, our sporting editor. And I wanted to ask you, Ali, if we had any updates from our friend Al Walid. I know that he was trying to organise getting together some Newcastle fans in Saudi Arabia to go and join with the Liverpool Supporters Club. I hope that ended up a lot friendlier than ours did at the actual game.
Yes, I did speak to him. So he's trying to set up, as we spoke last week, he's trying to set up, or has already set up a Newcastle Supporters Club. It's just not an official club,
He's working on that, right?
And he's working on that. And yesterday, obviously, the Liverpool Supporters Club in Saudi Arabia and Riyadh, as it is in Dubai, they're official clubs. And so the Liverpool Supporters Club invited Al Walid and all his mates and this growing group of Newcastle supporters to go watch the game with them. He sent me some of the pictures and the videos. A very, very friendly atmosphere. I think it was very welcoming. And even at the end, after the result, they were kind of consoling each other, I guess, a little bit more than people were on Twitter or in the stadium.
Or at Anfield.
Or at Anfield, exactly. So it was a little bit more lively there, shall we say. No, so okay. It's a good start, and it's good. I mean, as for the game, I just want to give one last thing about the match at the weekend, and also just on yesterday's match. I think one thing that Newcastle have done, Eddie Howe has done, all that. Just looking at the games they've played so far this season, they have shown they can play in so many different ways. I think the first game against Forest, it was a game they were expected to win, and they won it comfortably. They completely dominated start to finish against the promoted team. They won. The second game against Brighton, they showed a different side. They weren't particularly very good, but they were very resilient. Third game against City was just a match of the season, and they battered City for a good 50 minutes. Again, showing they can attack the big clubs and go toe-to-toe with them. Against Wolves, slightly different game. Again, kept going to the last minute and scored a wonderful goal in the 90th minute. So they've shown, and yesterday, of course, a few seconds away from getting a point, at Liverpool. So I think they've shown different ways of playing, which again, a year ago, you couldn't have imagined it. They really have, he's building a very streetwise squad, a very streetwise team, that can go to different places and play in certain different ways and get results, So very impressive stuff. I think as for my prediction, John's not going to like this, but I think Newcastle win 2-1.
Okay, we'll take that.
Can't you? I thought you were going to go a little bit more, but no. I think it'd be a tough game, but I mean, head would say, 2-1, but heart saying 1-1.
Yeah.
As my grandfather and father have always told me, you can never have a bet in football. So there we go. It's an interesting one, and I know I'll be on the phone to John over the weekend. I'm looking forward to it. Listen, that's just about it from us here on another edition of Black and White with Arab News. All that remains for me is to thank today's guest, John Salako. Absolutely brilliant to see you, John, and hopefully we'll talk to you again before the end of the season. Ali, brilliant to see you as always. We'll be back next week on Black and White with Arab News. How are the lads?